Well, another Super Bowl Sunday has come and gone here in the United States, and we, the American people, have once again enjoyed all the traditions that make this day what it is. Gathering together with family and friends, getting around the TV, watching some really funny commercials, watching some great football while we chow down on our favorite food, talking a little smack, and otherwise enjoying the fellowship that comes along with everything that makes Super Bowl Sunday what it is. Now, lest you think that you are alone in engaging in your traditions, be advised American politicians were busy on Sunday engaging in their traditions too. One of them is trying to pass a bill that you don't particularly think is such a good idea when you're not paying attention. Want an example of what I'm talking about? Did you know that the U.S. Senate was working today on passing another Ukraine aid funding bill while we were all in front of the TV watching the game? Wonder what I'm talking about? Hang on, folks. We're going to get into all this in just 1 second. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. On Sunday, the Senate took another vote on a foreign aid funding package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan and moved it one step closer to passage. The bill, although not yet finalized, is in the process of working its way through the Senate's labyrinth of procedures to come to a final vote, probably for Tuesday or Wednesday this week. So let's take a look at the headlines, figure out what's going on with this thing, and see if we can make sense of it all. We start with the Associated Press. Headline: Senators push forward with Ukraine aid package as their leaders say the world is watching. Interesting headline. Article written by Mary Claire Jonolik and Stephen Groves, we read the following. As former President Donald Trump and a growing number of Republicans oppose U.S. aid to Ukraine, the Senate leaders argued in strong terms on Sunday that the money is crucial to pushing back against Russian President Vladimir Putin and maintaining America's global standing. In the Capitol for a rare weekend session, the Senate voted again to move forward with the assistance of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat New York, and Republican Leader Mitch McConnell, Kentucky, issued stark warnings about the consequences of abandoning longtime U.S. allies in Europe. Quote, Today is no exaggeration to say that the eyes of the world are on the United States Senate. Well, I'm not so sure about that, Mitch. I think the eyes of the world are on their TVs watching the Super Bowl, which is part of the reason why you guys did this. But I digress. We go back to the article. Our partners and allies are hoping that this indispensable nation, the leader of the free world, has the resolve to continue. Sunday's 67 to 27 vote to move forward the $95.3 billion aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and other countries comes as former President Donald Trump, the frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination, is trying to kill the assistance and has escalated his attacks on the NATO military alliance. Trump posted on his social media platform over the weekend that the U.S. should consider loaning Ukraine money instead of giving it to them, saying, the United States of America should be stupid no longer. And the former president on Saturday at a campaign rally in South Carolina said that Russia should be able to do, quote, whatever the hell they want to NATO members who do not meet their defense spending targets. He recounted a story he has told before about the unidentified NATO member who confronted him over his threat to not help them. While McConnell made Ukraine a top issue, an increasing number of members in his GOP conference have followed Trump's lead and are opposing the aid, which Senate leaders have tried to pass for months. Without mentioning Trump by name, McConnell said in his opening remarks Sunday that, quote, America leadership matters and it is in question. Schumer said that if America does not assist Ukraine, quote, Putin is all too likely to succeed. The only answer to this threat is for the Senate to face down unflinchingly by passing this bill as soon as we can, Schumer said after the vote. Okay, let's get into this. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I have absolutely not been happy with this idea of what's going on in Ukraine, and more particularly the U.S.'s involvement in it. Now, I have my reasons. Most of them, I think, are pretty solid. But Now we're moving forward with more aid for Ukraine at a time when things over in Ukraine are very shaky, not necessarily even because of the Russians, because of internal politics. So, what exactly is in this bill, this foreign aid package? Well, again, we go back to the Associated Press. Take a look at this headline. What's inside the Senate's 95 bill to aid to Ukraine, Israel, and to counter China? Well, to get a breakdown on it, we have the following. For Ukraine, about 60 billion in this bill is going to support Ukraine as it defends itself from the Russian invasion that began nearly 2 years ago. There's nearly 14 billion to allow Ukraine to rearm itself through the purchase of weapons and munitions, and another 15 billion for support services such as military training and intelligence sharing. The support also includes non-military assistance. About 8 billion would go to help Ukraine's government continue basic operations with a prohibition on giving money toward pensions. And there's about 1.6 billion to help Ukraine's private sector. About a third of the money allocated to supporting Ukraine actually will be spent replenishing the U.S. military with the weapons and equipment that are going to Ukraine. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell has repeatedly emphasized that point, saying Friday that the money is about, quote, rebuilding the arsenal of democracy and demonstrating to our allies and adversaries alike that we're serious about exercising American strength. There's about 480 million to help Ukraine displaced by the war. Spending related to Israel. About 14.1 billion in this bill would go to help Israel and US military operations in the region. About 4 billion would go to boost Israel's air defenses, with another 1.2 billion for the Iron Beam, a laser weapon system designed to intercept and destroy missiles. There's about 2.5 billion to support US military operations in the region. Israel launched its war against Hamas after the military group's unprecedented October 7th attack that killed about 1,200, mostly civilians, in Israel. About 250 others were taken hostage. The legislation also contains 9.2 billion in humanitarian assistance to provide food, water, and shelter and medical care to civilians in Gaza and the West Bank, Ukraine, and others caught in war zones around the world. The war in Gaza has sparked a humanitarian catastrophe that has prompted shortages of the basic necessities. A quarter of Gaza's residents are starving. Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat, Maryland, said Friday he's consulted with the leaders of the international humanitarian organizations that have operated for decades in conflict zones around the world. Quote, everyone has stated that their organizations have never experienced a humanitarian disaster as dire and terrible as the world is witnessing in Gaza, Van Hollen said. Spending related to China. More than 8 billion in the bill would go to support key partners in the Indo-Pacific and deter aggression by the Chinese government. The bill includes 1.9 billion to replenish US weapons provided to Taiwan and about 3.3 billion to build more US-made submarines in support of a security partnership with Australia and the United Kingdom. Other provisions. The bill includes about 400 million for a grant program to help nonprofits and places of worship make security enhancements and protect them from hate crimes. There's also language that would target sanctions on criminal organizations involved in the production of fentanyl. So there you go, folks. 60 billion more for Ukraine, but nothing for the United States. Now, some people are going to say, well, we're investing in our own security by making sure that we don't have to fight Vladimir Putin somewhere else around the globe. Okay, you can make that argument. I don't know how solid of an argument that it is. I have said all along, I do not like where we're going with this. There's a lot of reasons why we ought not be involved in this. And I could make a pretty good argument that we, the American people, have pushed this situation in Ukraine to where it is. 2 years of fighting, thousands upon thousands of Ukrainian dead. And we keep pumping more money into this, as opposed to trying to bring about peace and get them to the negotiating table. Which, by the way, according to reports, they were there not once, but twice. And on one of those occasions, if Vladimir Putin is to be believed, they had agreements almost ready to sign, and the British came along behind them and convinced the Ukrainians not to go along with it. But again, that's Putin's side of the story. For my part, I don't think this ought to pass. What do I think is going to happen? Unfortunately, this thing's going to get through the Senate. The only place left to stop it is the House. And even then, I'm not very confident that it will be stopped in the House. I just don't see how this is the right thing to do. We've got a myriad of multiple problems at home. Why are we not taking care of our own issues? I understand that there's a war going on in Ukraine. What is the vital national security interest that demands that we keep being involved in this? And why are we hell bent for leather to keep the war going as opposed to doing what the good book says? Blessed are the peacemakers. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that evil shouldn't be confronted whenever possible. And in the defense of the United States, we sometimes need to take action that we may not like, but we have to do. But I still am yet to understand what is the national security interest involved in a fight between Ukraine and Russia. Again, people can disagree with me if they want to, and that's perfectly fine. That's their right. But this, to me, makes absolutely no sense. But not everything that happened in politics on Sunday was related to what was going on in the U.S. Senate. There were some traditions that go along with politics in the Super Bowl that actually got carried on. For example, there were campaign ads that ran. One of them was downright funny. Let me show you something that I think you'll find amusing. I don't know who's running Donald Trump's um, campaign this year. Well, I know the names, but I don't know how good they are. But I'll tell you one thing, their campaign ad team is very funny. Have you guys seen the ad that Donald Trump ran against Nikki Haley during the Super Bowl? This is hysterical. Folks, check this out if you're looking for a good laugh. That's kind of funny. I don't know about you. I think that's rather amusing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to get you all out there who are supporting Nikki Haley all upset. Look, I've said all along, if you want to vote for Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis or whoever you choose, that's your business. But you got to admit, that one's kind of funny. Anyway, Trump wasn't the only one who was dropping pieces of information during the Super Bowl. One of the traditions that goes along with America's game is that the president sits down for an interview. Now, for the past couple of years, well, actually, let me rephrase that. Last year, Joe Biden broke that tradition. He wouldn't sit for an interview, and he did it again this year. But this is not to say that the president was not heard from. This actually is, I'm not quite sure what to make of this, but we'll show it to you anyway. So, we have heard from the president, and here are his comments. Check this out.
The Super Bowl Sunday. If you're anything like me, you like to be surrounded by a snack or two while watching the big game. You know, when buying snacks for the game, you might have noticed one thing. Sports drinks bottles are smaller. A bag of chips has fewer chips, but they're still charging you just as much. And as an ice cream lover, what makes me the most angry is that ice cream cartons have actually shrunk in size, but not in price. I've had enough of what they call shrinkflation. It's a ripoff. Some companies are trying to pull a fast one by shrinking the products little by little and hoping you won't notice. Give me a break. The American public is tired of being played for suckers. I'm calling on companies to put a stop to this. Let's make sure businesses do the right thing now.
Well, okay. So there's fewer product, same price, and he's tired of the American people being played for suckers. Well, Mr. President, so are we. We just wish you'd stop playing us for suckers. But let's see what some of the reaction to this erudite commentary is. And these are very interesting. Shrinkflation. I did that. The quartering says, bro, it's not shrinkflation. It's building back better. Poso drops in, shrinkflation so bad it's hitting your remaining brain cells. Imagine being so dumb you admit what happened under your administration. Prices aren't rising, your dollar is worth less. Stop printing our money to zero. Nah, I won't go with the rest of that. 15 cuts in 48 seconds, impressively cadaver like. It's not called shrinkflation, it's called Bidenomics. The only thing shrinking are your demented brain cells. Oh, that's a little bit personal, don't you think? But anyway, you get the idea. Some traditions are carried on, some traditions are modified, but if nothing else, we, the American people, have enjoyed another Super Bowl Sunday. And politicians seem to be enjoying it just as much as we do. But that's what I think about it. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Number two, please leave a comment below. I'd like to know what you think about all this. Number three, please share the video around. It really helps me out a lot. Number four, hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure you're always aware when new material is coming out. And finally, please give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative, and I'll see you next time.